Welcome to your 5-part series on somatic healing. This is an entire journey just to give you the basics, the foundations of this, with a few practices that are going to set you up for deeper healing on a body level that will hopefully help you change all of those old patterns and habits that you are wanting to move beyond and bring a little bit more ease and calm into your life. So, to get started, I want to lay out the foundations of somatic experiencing and somatic healing, like the order of which that we do things, why we do them, and how we do them. And throughout this entire series, you're going to get some different practices that you can utilize and tools and tips that are going to help you along your way. To start with, let's explain a little bit more about what somatic experiencing is. It is a term coined by Dr. Peter Levine. I have worked with him. He's an amazing person. He's a psychotherapist that basically started researching other modalities of healing that went beyond Western medicine. And the idea behind somatic experiencing is that our bodies also experience trauma. Whatever we have dealt with emotionally, we hold an imprint of that within our bodies. We are affected by it, and we have physical and sensory reactions to what we experience. So my favorite analogy to give you is if you have ever been in a car accident and you had that whole moment where your body tensed up, you slammed on the brakes, your heart started racing, got really anxious, and afterward maybe you still teed up, as you're exchanging information if you could or whatever, and then you went on about your day, still a little bit teed up. But then you notice every time you drive past that particular spot where the accident happened, you still feel that sense of trigger, right? You get a little anxious, you grip the steering wheel a little bit more, your stomach clenches, you're a little bit trigger happy with your foot near the brake, you're looking at everything a little bit more. What has happened is your body has created a trauma response. Your body remembers that moment. It's received similar stimulus by you driving in that particular area that the accident happened, and your subconscious mind does not know the difference between the past and the present. So your body is reacting as if the same thing is about to happen again. You're going to get in a crash again. This is how all of our patterns and habits develop. So in somatic experiencing, we are working with the body. Somatic, if you break that down, soma means the body. So we're working with the body to de-escalate those triggers and help the brain understand that, hey, that accident or that bad relationship or that situation, whatever it may be, that is in the past. It is not now, and we do not have to have the same reactions and behaviors from the past now. We can choose a whole different way of dealing with this. So that's what we're doing with this modality. Now, we take this in stages, and I'm gonna break down the stages just a little bit, and each of your following videos is going to give you some of the tools that will help you move through these stages. So the first thing that we really look at doing in somatic experiencing is grounding. And when I bring up grounding, everybody's like, yeah, I kind of have an idea of what that is, but I don't really know. Grounding is essentially a practice to help bring you back to the present moment, bring you back to self. So the version of you that you are right now that is also beyond all of the old traumas and triggers, all of the stress and anxiety that you are carrying. And we can do that in a couple different ways, right? So grounding can be done by you simply taking a few moments to just focus on your surroundings, focus on what's around you, focus on who's around you, where you're at, things like that. And that's what we would call orienting, right? We are orienting ourselves to what is present right now. And we can also do that through body awareness, right? Understanding what we're feeling inside and either noticing, is that tied to something from my past? Is it tied to something in the present? Is it something that is bringing a sense of ease and calm? Or is it something that is bringing a sense of discomfort, fear, anxiety, or anything like that? And we're using that information to then go back and create a sense of calm again. Now within that, I would also put resourcing, even though that's a whole separate tool within itself. but resourcing is part of it, right? We are turning towards something that brings a sense of safety. So resourcing can include something like co-regulation, where somebody around you is helping you come into a state of calm. So if you've ever had the experience of being very, very anxious and very, very unsettled, and somebody that knows you and cares about you starts speaking in a very calm, very soothing tone, and their body language is very calm, and they're listening and they're present and they're giving you their attention, but they're speaking and acting in this way that is very, very soothing. And you notice that as you're talking it through with them, you start to feel that soothing energy, that soothing sensation move through your body, and you notice the anxiety comes down a little bit more as you get the support that you need, the validation, as well as them creating a sense of safety through their behaviors and actions. So that's one way, but we can do that within ourselves by tapping into, again, the version of us that we are now that is capable of handling what we're going. We don't even have to have somebody around us to still access them, right? You can start to think of a person that provides that sense of calm and support for you. We're using evidence, or what we would call glimmers, right? The opposite of a trigger. So instead of it being somebody that makes you feel unsafe, unloved, unwanted, whatever, we are turning towards someone or something that makes you feel safe, makes you feel loved, makes you feel wanted, validated, all of those things. So that's what resourcing is. And you can use tools for that as well, but essentially it is using a person or yourself to create that sense of internal safety. And this can also be done, like I said, through tools which we would use to stimulate the nervous system so that it comes back into a more neutral state. Your nervous system is designed to constantly feed your brain information from your body and then take that information and tell your body how to react from it. So we have one big nerve that runs from our brain down to our major organs, and that is called the vagal nerve. This nerve is essentially responsible for letting your brain know whether or not you are safe, and your brain sending back the message to decide whether or not you should go into a trauma response. So that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, although we have more than those 4 responses, but for right now, we're just gonna focus on those 4. Now, through any given moment, through any given time, you should be able to slide up and down the scale of your trauma responses and that neutral state. Because life happens, right? You can be in the kitchen cooking and accidentally realize like you almost put your hand down on the burner, and your body immediately goes into that flight response and says, get that hand away and move right now. You can be in a state of overwhelm because there's too much information happening all at once around you. Maybe you're at a busy concert or an event or something and there's just too much, and you're tired and you haven't gotten a lot of sleep, and your body starts to zone out a little bit, and it's your brain's way of saying, hey, you're overstimulated, you need to go rest, right? And that's that freeze response happening a little bit. So these things should happen, and they happen typically when we are in states where we could be harmed, because again, your brain is there just to keep you alive. That is its sole purpose. So in that, it is going to do anything it perceives necessary to keep you alive, and in some instances there is a risk of injury or death, so it's going to react. And we want to have a healthy nervous system that will dance along that scale of either going into the fight, flight, fawn, or freeze, as well as through the neutral state of things. The problem becomes when we have trauma. Now, trauma can be any instance where there are unresolved emotions and patterns that created a significant amount of stress in your brain and body. So even something chronically stressful, right? Like maybe you work for a boss that's just horrible and makes your life hell every day. That's trauma. If you feel like you're constantly on edge with your boss, that is traumatic for you. If you are not getting enough rest and sleep because you have too much work to do, you have too many responsibilities, it is creating a trauma response in your body, and it's creating trauma. So it's all relative to experience. So those first set of tools, right, the grounding, which can include the orienting tools, the body scanning and the body awareness and the resourcing, we're using those things first to establish a relationship with your body that feels a little bit safer than it may right now, as well as helping you come back to the present moment and feel safe and secure when we are working on things. It's also setting you up to slowly start developing a new belief system that will support whatever it is that you want to do moving forward. The next stage of this is where we are doing the deeper dive work, the stuff that we need to do to help move past our traumas. Now, the thing with healing is at any moment, at any time, we can be facing something from our past shooting up, right? You can be starting a relationship with somebody that is really healthy and really great, and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. But then it comes time to have like a vulnerable discussion about something that in the past hasn't gone so well. And immediately you start to feel that sense of anxiety and fear come up around it, right? And you're thinking, but I thought I've worked through this. Why is this happening? Again, it is a similar stimulus that is creating a reaction tied to the past. So these things can pop up at any time. And the most important thing for you to understand is you're not doing anything wrong. You haven't failed at healing. You haven't failed in any way. It is just the reaction of things. But the goal is through this modality to reduce the reactions enough to where even when it does pop up, like it's just that quick reaction and then you let it go. And hopefully over time build new reactions that take the place of those old ones. So there's a few ways that we do this. We do it through titration, through pendulation, through sequencing or tracking, and through acts of triumph. What does that all mean? Well, titration, the idea of it is we are learning to titrate the uncomfortable emotions and sensations that we experience in our body that are tied to past traumas or stress, whatever you want to call it. So a lot of us like to intellectualize what we feel. A lot of us like to bury it down deep and pretend like it's not happening, or compartmentalize it, or find ways to cope with it that essentially just from it or ignore it altogether. So, I'd rather go to the gym. I'd rather tune out for a while than deal with this thing. I'd rather try to overly explain it and think through it through journaling for endless hours and never really getting anywhere with it because I'm avoiding feeling the feelings tied to the past. So through titration, what we're doing is building up your window of tolerance for the emotions that you have been avoiding, the things that are keeping you stuck in all of those old patterns and behaviors. And we can do that by helping you start to notice the physical reactions that you have when you think about current patterns, current issues that keep coming up for you, and taking that physical reaction and meeting it with a little bit of discomfort, right? And then pulling back from it. So that's the titration piece, right? We're testing it a little bit. We're building our tolerance to it. So to the point that you can slowly but surely get to the point of feeling it all. And once you can feel it all, then it doesn't have such a great hold on you. Then we can move past it and into something different and better. Okay. The pendulation is that dance between going into it and staying there for a little bit and then pulling out of it. The titration is staying in it and holding it for little bits of time and doing that longer and going deeper with it until it feels safe to just really express it and let it move through you. And a side note with that, you cannot release emotions. You cannot get rid of them. You need to express them, right? Emotions aren't something we suddenly stop experiencing. They're just something that we have to learn to experience in ways that feel safe and supportive to our bodies and our brains. So then if we look at the sequencing or tracking, the whole idea of that is once we notice those sensations, being able to name what we're feeling and noticing how it moves through our body. Sometimes when we're processing things, you will start to notice I'm feeling it really tightly in my throat here. I feel a lot of discomfort here. And then if we start to track that as we're talking about what that's attached to, like why is that sensation here? What is it trying to tell you? What memories may that be attached to? You might notice like, oh, and now it's starting to move down my chest, down to my stomach, and all these different places. So by us naming those things and tracking them, we can start to assess what's happening in the body. Also help your body find physical ways to move that energy, move that sensation outward so that it's no longer feeling so intense for you. And then the act of triumph. This is essentially like you getting your chance to fight back. Now, fighting back doesn't always mean like, if you were assaulted or abused in any physical capacity. Fighting back sometimes can be us like setting up a pillow or something as an object of somebody that caused a lot of hurt and a lot of trauma for you, and giving you the chance to express it. If you felt like you were in a situation where you couldn't get away, and again, it's not even just physically, but even emotionally or whatever, giving you the opportunity to get up and move while you're processing it, while you're experiencing the emotions. It's essentially giving your brain and your body the chance to do what it never got to do before. And again, we're doing this all in safe ways. So if you've noticed, we don't necessarily have to talk about everything from the past. We don't have to go into all of it, but we are going into the sensations of it enough to help you release the trigger and release some of the intensity of it, so that way it's no longer impacting what's going on in your life now. Now, the next part of this is where we get to the quote unquote good part, right? This is where we're learning boundary setting. We're reframing beliefs and we're reaffirming those beliefs. So the boundaries that we're setting after this, like once we establish, okay, we've processed all this stuff, we feel grounded, we feel secure. Maybe I don't need to do these people-pleasing activities anymore because I'm afraid of being abandoned. Maybe it's actually safe for me to speak up and say no when I don't want to do something, or not overcommit myself, or whatever it may be, right? And those boundaries are with you and other people. So it's not just a setting of a boundary with other people. You have to set those with yourself as well. And that's a learned skill. And then from there, the reframe is taking the current beliefs, right? It's not safe for me to open up because I always get it rejected. Maybe that's the old belief, right? So the new belief would be, now that we feel a little safer in our body, we know that we are safe, we know who we are now, and we're not stuck in the past, on a subconscious level, on a physiological level. So maybe the belief now is safe for me to open up with safe people, right? And you become more discerning of people, and you have boundaries that are related to that new belief. And then the reaffirming is those practices that we use to build on those glimmers, to build on the positive, the supportive experiences and people in your life, so that it feels more and more possible to keep moving forward. And the whole idea behind that is, when you can latch on to anything that supports your goal or your desire for yourself, out of all of this work, it builds evidence. So maybe you've never had a really healthy romantic partnership before. That's okay. But can we find examples of safe people or safe situations where you've been able to open up, where you've been heard and seen and loved and validated for who you are? Are there examples from other people that you know of safe relationships? So we can kind of use those with a new body sensation of what it feels like when you think about those things, to start to create some internal evidence that, yeah, this is possible. And not only is it possible, it feels safe for me to explore and have. So that's the whole basis of this entire modality. We're going through these stages, building upon them to the point that the way that your brain is working with your body is actually supporting movement forward versus continuously intellectualizing and shoving down what's going on inside and continuing to repeat the old patterns, the old behaviors, the old habits that you really don't want to anymore. So how do you use this guide from here? Well, after you've taken the time to listen to this whole video, I want you just to take a moment to jot down, what are the habits and patterns, behaviors, those things that you keep repeating that you notice in your life right now. Jot those down in a list, however you want. You can get out some paper and a journal, you can use your phone, you can, whatever you want to do. But jot down, what are the things that you notice yourself repeating over and over again? And then what I want you to do is set a goal for yourself. What is the one thing out of all of these practices that you're going to use from here on out that you would like to change? What's a goal that you have for yourself or a desire? Either something that you want to improve or change in your life. So it can be with relationships, whatever. It can be finances, career, anything. It's up to you. What do you want to change? And again, what are those patterns and habits and behaviors that you notice that tend to make that difficult for you? Take whatever those are and just notice for a moment and scan your body and notice, like, how do I feel when I look at this? Both when I look at what my goal is and then when I look at all of these patterns and habits that seem to get in the way of this happening, right? What are the things that keep repeating that make it difficult to get to wherever you want to be? What is my reaction to that? What do I feel in my body? Just name the physical sensations that you notice. That's going to be your first starting point, because that information is telling you where there's some stuff going on attached to old emotions, old memories, and whatnot that are going to be really important for you to keep track of as you move through this work. Take your time to do that. When you're ready, start with the next video, watch these in order, and don't think about using these all at once. The goal here is to take your time with this. So once you feel like you've really gotten down one skill and you feel really secure with it, use that until you're ready to move on to the next stage of this, okay? Because the goal here is not to blow out your nervous system, not to do anything that hurts you. The goal really is to take your time and just make this a nice, slow, steady pathway forward so that you get there in a time frame that is sustainable, not quickly, right? This is not quick work. This is sustainable work. This is work that is meant to be done and built upon so that you have a strong foundation to move forward. So that said, I hope that you love this. Make sure that you're following. Make sure that you are also in the Patreon community so that you can get access to more tools, more things than just what's in this guide, because there's going to be a ton in there, a ton of resources for you. And every month I am putting out more and more in there. So I hope you love this. I hope you use it, and I hope it works for you.